Welcome to the Love Pod, where inspiration, vision, and real connection come alive. Wherever you are, you belong here.
Welcome to the Love Pod, everyone. I am Nathaniel, your host for today. I am so pleased to welcome special guest Lukas Schmidt, who is just an inspiring mover and shaker. We met on school, and I really love your mission, brother, to change the education system. We have shared heart in that, and really to make learning fun again. You have a really interesting story and background, and you've been really involved in some interesting projects on school. So I'd love to just invite you to share more about who you are, Lucas, and what is the fire behind all the passion that you're bringing into the school ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that. And appreciate you for having me on. I think the concept of building bridges is something that we both relate to, and I think you hit the nail on the head with the ecosystem because that's ultimately what we are striving after. And I think school is just modeling that perfectly, which is one of the reasons why I'm on. And the thing that ultimately is burning this desire to change the world and make it a better place is making sure that the potential of the next generation is not squandered. And I
Mm,
think this is what the traditional education system is doing currently. We are not preparing the next generation for the future that is to come with AI. We are preparing them to be obedient workers in the 19th
mm.
century. And we needed that like 100 years ago, but we don't really need it anymore. And I see the future just like learning needs to be social and it needs
Mm.
to be adaptive. And we need to connect to the people who are only a few steps ahead. And that's ultimately what community allows for. Because in a solid community, and I think this is what makes community the most scalable business there is, because the people learn from each other and they
Mm.
also teach each other. So we always learn from the people who are a few steps ahead of us, and we are guiding the people who are a few steps behind. And this is creating this ecosystem, or it becomes one large organism where everyone is just contributing towards the larger mission. And I absolutely love this.
I think that's really fascinating, looking at community as like infinitely scalable. You know, there's a sentiment in indigenous circles, there's always room for one more in the circle. And I feel like that really is the heart of community as well. It's like, like we're doing this, we're doing it together. And I feel like, when we're at our best, our species is really a co-creative, collaborative species where we are social organisms. We really not only do we need one another as people, but we are the most interdependent species. If we look at our whole world, and speaking of ecosystems, we have this view in the West, like we're on the top of the pyramid, king of the castle. But from an indigenous view, they look at it inversely. It's like we are actually dependent on every other thing of creation to thrive and to flourish as a species. If anything underneath us goes away, we collapse, So I really appreciate that. And I mean, you're a really bright thinker. You have developed a really unique take on your building your own community that is an interconnective community. Lucas, can you talk a little bit more about the game?
Yeah, I'd love to. For me, the game is the thing that has been emerging for a couple of years now. And it originates from my mission to improve the education system and make learning fun again. And I think ultimately learning is a game, or at least that's how I always learned the best, not
Hmm.
by someone telling me to remember this list of vocabularies or memorize these different equations. It was always in a playful manner. And there's
Yeah.
still some scenarios where some teachers were like, you are role playing as this country now, and like you have to now try to reenact the American Revolution or whatever. And like these things are still sticking with me. And when playing like different games from like even Assassin's Creed, I learned more about history by playing these
Mm.
games, or I learned more about language by
Mm.
playing with my friends online and trying to communicate than I did in this sterile environment.
Hmm.
And after that, I can did the research and I learned that there's this form of gamification where we take things that are more business-like, are more theoretical and kind of dry, and we add elements of games that, in the wrong kind of scenario, can be highly addictive, but we can create a positive addiction towards
Mm.
learning, towards positive behavior, right? Like my dad, for example, is addicted to riding the bike. That's not a bad thing. Of course, it
Yeah.
can become something bad because like everything in excess eventually turns destructive. But if we even look at school, and I think this is why I was always drawn to school, is it uses these different elements from games, like having a leaderboard, having a streak system where you, when by being active, you get a flame
Mm.
and you are seeing the status and you can kind of climb these things, but you're being rewarded for the right kind of behavior. While on social media, you are rewarded for just feeding the algorithm
Mhm.
and kind of making other people rich because they pay for advertisements.
Mhm.
So what I do in the game is I want to connect people with one another and basically eradicate this concept of being an NPC,
Mm.
someone who is going through life on autopilot and who is not really making the decisions. So this could
Mm.
be studying something just because like your parents want that, or getting a job because that's what society expects of you. And as soon as we start making our own decisions, we become players in the greater game because we choose which path to take on. And these choices are the things where we learn the most. Because me choosing to learn a new skill allows me to go down that rabbit hole and start pursuing these things by choice because I choose to go down that direction instead of someone else telling me that. And that's what we're curating in the game. And I think they are like people with all of these different superpowers, and I want to connect them with one another. So you are all players and you all have your own unique superpower, which means you can help each other. Because someone who is really good at fitness can help the people who are really good at business, and then they can maybe get help from people who are really good at relationships, which then in turn get help by the people who are really good with their health and fitness. So this way, everyone is helping everyone else out, and that's how we get back to the ecosystem and the larger e organism.
I love that, man. Because there's a big problem that we seek to solve too as a bridge building community with Later Vision is this challenge that a lot of entrepreneurs face. As soon as you make that decision that like I'm going to start a business, I'm going to do my thing, it can be so isolating, and you open a door to all this stuff that you don't know, and then you try to figure it out. Okay, I got to figure out how to market, and then there's like you know infinite volumes of material and everyone's trying to sell a 10K program, and then you're like, okay, well then I have to learn how to sell myself and sell a product, and then same thing, it's like this big thing, and then you have to actually deliver and do all this stuff, and it's super overwhelming, and a lot of entrepreneurs I think just get to a place where they can't do it all, so they end up veering to another direction. I feel like school is solving this in real time in a lot of ways and giving opportunities for gamifying this, making it fun again. I mean, there's some really interesting players coming together who are doing this, like Sam Ovens and Andrew Kirby and Alex Ramosi. And when I listen to a lot of these guys like yourself, I hear there's a heart of caring, of wanting to help people in an authentic way. And I that's what resonates with me, I think, the most is like this idea that we are so interconnected. Everything I've learned from sitting in, countless circles with elders, going into my own meditation, spending time in nature, and looking at just how fluid everything actually is. But we've kind of created a society, and I think you're right, Lucas. I think it's based on the education indoctrination system. It's not really education because it removes children from their own sovereignty. It removes them from their autonomy, even to go to the bathroom or to like when you want to run outside or what you want to focus on. I mean, you might really love writing and drawing, but it's time for math, and math is stressful, but you're going to do it, and your worth as an individual is dependent on that grade you get as a test. So I mean it's a big problem, and I really love your approach. Before we got on the call, you were talking about your background in education and kind of your inspiration for wanting to study systems design. Was it systems design and electrical engineering? Can we talk
It
a little
was
bit about that?
building system technology, which is
Building system.
something that I studied. So I can do something like
Y-
this. Um, and it ultimately wasn't the right thing for me. But yeah, you're right. I kind of like after that went into the education system. I figured out like what do I need to do in order to get to the point, and I very early disregarded any form of politics or traditional education because it felt too slow. And considering on how quickly AI was moving, I was like,
Mm,
I'm not going to be able to be in a position where I can make a meaningful change
hmm
that will be in time to have the impact that is required.
hmm
And I figured it's like, okay, I need something with AI, so technology. It needs to be some form of business. So I ended up studying business IT, and I did finish that degree. But I was also working in project management for a big corporation because I figured, oh, I will be able to, or I need to be able to manage a lot of people and organize them. And that's why project management was the go-to and being an innovation. And I ended up leading a team to help the new students be onboarded in the company. And from there on, I started to travel through Europe. I explored some of the best education systems. And I wanted to touch on something that we mentioned before. And
Yeah.
I think the key aspect, or like what I see from the best education systems, if you look at Finland, if you look at some like private schools in Spain, for example, they really focus on a safety. It's like
hmm
you need to feel safe as a learner and being able to like, okay, I can present myself and I don't feel like someone's gonna make fun of me because
hmm
that is shutting down learning very quickly. And then the second one is agency. So we need to give people the choice. It's like, hey, you need to demonstrate these kind of skills, but how you demonstrate is up to you. Because we can demonstrate some critical thinking by doing this with the example of um, I don't know, creating like bottles. If you really
Yeah.
like creating bottles, then you can like create some critical thinking. So, oh, the bottle should be like fit well in the hand and stuff. And you can go into marketing and like copywriting and everything. But you can also do this around your passion of like any sports, like soccer or music. And I think this is something I really love about school is that the principles of running a community are the same. We all have to attract leads, we all have to convert these leads, and then we have to deliver results. But it is very different whether you in a music community, or you are in a sports community, or maybe you're in a relationships community. They all follow, like, we need to demonstrate our competencies.
hmm
Um, but we can do that by doing the thing that we are most passionate about. And if we help students do something similar, our learners help do that similar, in the beginning, they get to just choose whatever community that they feel drawn to. And then from there on, they'll be inspired to probably start their own communities eventually, because that is the direction that we're taking, because it's the one thing that AI will not replace.
hmm
AI will replace desk jobs and like individual things, but communities where people connect with one another, it's not going to be replaced because the value lies in the connections and the relationships with other people, not necessarily in the content.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's such a natural thing to being human, and I feel like we got a real good contrast. I mean, if we just, look back a few years ago where we were all placed in a position of isolation and masks and all the craziness that seems like another lifetime. But to me, it was such a it allowed that highlight. What I realized during that process is I really knew myself more based on my relationships with others. Like everyone mirrors to us. It's the ascetic life to go into the desert and to be with yourself and to really get a clear sense of who you are when you strip away all of that is not an easy thing to do for a lot of people. We really thrive through relationships and we can help one another grow and flourish, especially when we recognize our shared connections, and what's really important for us. And it's funny, like they talk about these three buckets in entrepreneurship, but I feel like these are the basic things we all want. We all want to be healthy. We all want to be wealthy and enjoy the abundance of life, and we all want to have uplifting, positive, fulfilling relationships. It's pretty basic being a healthy human being. And it's interesting too. Although we haven't traveled to Europe, Lucas, we studied a lot of education systems, and we went on a quest out west. My wife and I, before our daughter, we went to study. Really was the question that led us, like, what is conscious community and how can we build bridges between conscious communities? That was the question we asked before we got in our vehicle, and we just drove to the mountains out west, and we traveled across the Turtle's Back, the Turtle being Turtle Island, and we went into the Rockies, and we eventually ended up on Vancouver Island, met so many wonderful people, so many different community models and different thinkers, and we were exposed to some of these different education systems too. Like specifically on Salt Spring Island, we met a woman who was doing basically an unschooling endeavor, where during the lockdown, she just took all the students who couldn't be in the classes, and she treated the whole island as their classroom. So very
Mm.
much using the ecology, visiting everywhere, and her approach was to not have any structure, which Julie and I found a little jarring. But she also introduced us to this school in England. I forget the name of it, where the students all have voting rights. And the first rule that they created was they don't have to go to class. So all of a sudden now you talk about autonomy and agency. It's like they choose what courses they go to, what they excel in. And we are also introduced to this model in Russia called the School of Life, which is connected to the Ringing Cedars series with the Anastasia series. And in that School of Life, they work in pods. So it dissolves the barriers that in the West, like this industrial model that it's this conveyor belt. It's like, if you were born in 1955, you're going to be in class with all the 1955s, and they've dissolved that, and they work in pods of I think between 7 and 21-year-olds. And what's interesting about how they learn is they learn through they have their core studies, so they're always learning, like kind of to that safety piece. They learn how to build. They're actively involved in construction. They learn martial arts skills, self-defense. They're doing physical education, all that stuff. So they have a core subject they're all doing together, but then they study one field at a time exhaustively. So one pod of like maybe 8 students is going to do the whole field of chemistry
Mm.
from as much as they can. They'll exhaust it, and then they'll go to another subject. And what I'd imagine is interestingly happening is like the pods talk to each other. So everyone's saying, "Oh, that's also in physics. That's also in our math." And So it's really there's these different models, but at the heart of it, my background in Indigenous wellness, I think is the simplest concept that I've had is intergenerational learning. And this kind of goes back to this idea of homeschooling, because we've had people ask us, because that's our intention with our daughter, homeschool. And I like to expand on that. It's heaven on Mother Earth school, or heaven omni Mother Earth. Like, how can we be heaven and how can we contribute to community? But really, this idea of homeschooling, a lot of the parents we've talked to, a lot of people have this concern. It's like, well, how will my child become socialized if they don't
Mm.
go to
Yeah.
school? And I've talked to a lot of homeschooling parents, and what they tell me each time is like, Nathaniel, our children, they talk with people of all ages. They'll talk to, seniors. They talk to children younger than them. They don't have this weird, like conditioning to only talk to children the same age as them. It's such a weird thing. So I think that the clearest model that I've seen in a lot of indigenous communities, and what happened when the children were removed, what it did, it created a void, right? Because the communities were organized based on vulnerability. So in this core of that, the two groups of people that needed the most connection were the elders, or the grandparents, and the children, and they feed one another.
Oh yeah.
There's the wisdom, there's the storytelling, there's all that stuff. But then the elders get to live through the joy of being just around these little, playful, curious. So they keep growing too, and then surrounded by that, the women take care of that circle. And then everyone has different roles in a community. And so I love what you're doing in terms of roles. And you are very much a wizard. You know how to build, you know how to manage teams and stuff. Can you talk a little bit more about the roles that you've created from your paradigm?
Yeah, it originated from Synthesizer, which is a community that I was very active in. And I think um, we grow up in another community to the point where we are having the expertise and we've learned everything so that we can do our own community. And something that I learned in Synthesizer is there are three aspects that every business needs. It's like we need to attract leads, we need to convert these leads, and we need to deliver results. And for me, this was so similar to how video games display different roles, right? So when you are playing not in a single player game, but more of a multiplayer game, you also need to have different roles. There's like someone who is healing all of the other party members, someone who is like absorbing all of the damage, someone who is doing the damage. And I figured like, oh, there is like tons of parallel on there. And
Hmm.
usually people tend to excel in one of these roles. Like, yes, you need to kind of have a basic understanding in all of them. And similar in school, it's the same thing. Like you need to have a basic understanding of reading and writing. And but you shouldn't be forced into something that you don't really want to pursue. So beyond the basic understandings, like no, like double down on your strengths. So the roles that I have in the game are the people who really focus on the attraction piece, which is in the traditional business sense marketing. These are the knights because they have to rally people around them. It's like they have this like huge banner above their head, and it's like, hey, like if you're lost, like come to me. If you're looking for this specific thing, like this is what I do. And the knights basically get other people to raise their hands. And then the people who are traditionally in sales and who are focused on converting and building trust with others, they are the ninjas. Who like look at all the people who raise their hands and it's like, okay, like who can we help the most? Who is the most qualified and who can we get the best possible results? And then they kind of like start talking with them. They really get to know them. And the goal for the ninjas is to build so much trust that they can then say, it's like, hey, it looks like you have this problem. I think we can help you with that. Do you want to talk with our wizard? And this is the third role in the game, which is usually someone who is working in operations, who is the one who is ultimately delivering the transformation, delivering the results. And if we think about business in that sense, it becomes so much simpler because we don't have to do everything ourselves anymore. We just need to look for people who are already doing these things. And then it's like, okay, let me learn from that. And that's like how I was going through my journey and career as well. Like I worked for some people and I helped them with creating content. And I had Goose here at my place and we were shooting some ads. And like I helped him at some IRL events and kind of like created content through that. So that was like my training as a knight. While in Synthesizer, I was able to help Aiden with qualifying leads. I was like, okay, like who are the right people in the program? Because like we obviously want to get the people who we can get the best possible results and like really qualifying them, building trust with them. It's like, hey, this is like someone that you should have a conversation with. And that was my training as a ninja. And then after the big launch, it was like, okay, now I finally got to be in the role that I wanted to be, which was the wizard. And it's like, okay, how can we now help the people? And it's like, what do they need to go through in order to get the results? How can we break down the information into smaller, manageable pieces? And what are the action items? And we like completely built the roadmap together. And that was kind of like me being able to contribute a lot more because like I'm ultimately the wizard. That's what I've been doing before, working in other education industries, helping like teens at Mind Valley be prepared for the future. Like that was my background. And while the background in marketing and sales was relatively small, but it was still important for me to have these and go through this experience so that I can relate with other people in that field. So I think that's the key aspect. If you eventually want to run your own community, then you need to have worked in all of these departments in a way, but most likely you're going to have a preference towards like, hey, this is what I can become the best in the world at. but I can only do that if I focus on this and I find other people who are the best at the world in these other aspects. So maybe a question towards you, like what role do you feel like filling?
Well, it's interesting because we've had this conversation a couple times, and I like you, I also have had different experience in those different domains. Uh, my background in Indigenous wellness, I've often been front facing to the people. So I'm very much a people person. I love people. I find everyone interesting, even if they think they're boring. I find that people have such a unique psychological spiritual journey, even if they don't think they're on a spiritual journey. I see it, and I see people's gifts. That's one of my gifts, is to be able to see and clearly articulate another person's gifts, which has allowed me to find a natural resonance here doing podcasting, because I just find everyone interesting. Like I find your background incredibly interesting, and also you as a visionary, and seeing you as a builder in school, because I feel like school is just such a innovative place where creativity is kind of, it's built in. We can have so many, like any kind of money model, any kind of creative school expression, community, building is so fluid, and because it can link to other things too. It's not just isolated to school. And also you mentioned, like, I never heard the term before school, IRLs. So I was like, I thought all of this was an IRL, but apparently online and in-person real life is different. But I I think that school is reinventing IRLs, and I want to be a part of that. I'm very interested in XR technologies. We're eventually going to be bringing our podcast on the road and having a mobile home XR studio to do in-life community events. Because honestly, man, I feel like, as much as I never really liked the attention so much. So I can do it. Like I'm a natural promoter usually of other people's stuff. Like I have a much better, more easeful way of like promoting the game or promoting school than be like, look at me, I'm so great. Because I think that we are all so great because we're all connected to the same source. So that was one area I always have trouble with. But I think at my heart, I'm an artist, and I love to create, and I'm really more of an inventor and an innovator than probably most people know. Like I've designed a lot of like interesting technologies. I've built things. I have a whole chronicles that I'm working on that is an evolving children's book, from a novel into through meditation technology, and then through children's book. So I'm trying to do that on the back end while building a school, while building the podcast, while learning the ins and outs of being a papa to a very active little girl. So at my heart, I think I am a wizard, but I feel like probably people see me most as probably the knight, because I'm very social. Like if you met with me with a line, and I realize that you have an open mind and you're interested in life, I might talk to you about consciousness or spiritual enlightenments. I might share some of my experiences with that with you. So I feel like I'm I'm courageous of any area of life, of just being kind of vulnerable with people and sharing about some of the experiences that I had, even though I might not be believed, and I haven't been believed by some of the people closest to me in my life about our journey. But I think that makes for a good night. Is you have to have conviction, and you have to go forth and be in the front and not be afraid of what people are going to think of you. But then you have to have vision to be a wizard. You really have to. Like you said, like you knew that this school system is not going to get you there, because it's not teaching AI literacy. If anything, it's trying to suppress students. So instead of teaching the skill, it's saying you can't use it, which is ridiculous because it's not priming people. Um, and then, yeah, man, I think sales is probably that's the area I have to learn now, because I realize this because a lot of people there's so much when it comes to money and sales. People don't like being sold. But what I realized is that um, and there's a lot of catchphrases out there like sales as service and all this stuff, but really, truly at the heart of it, if I can help someone with a transformation, the only way I can do that is if that individual is willing to invest in their own transformation. That's how it happens. I can't go around, and I learned this the hard way because I've been an overgiver. Like give, and I'll help people, and I'll give you this resource, and I'll give you this thing, and then what I realize is people don't value what they don't invest in. So what I'm learning from sales perspective, I really do see it as wholesome service. Like there has to be a mutual reciprocation of receiving. We have to enter into a giving and receiving cycle to be effective. Otherwise, I'm going to do everything for you, and then you're not going to be grateful, and you're probably not going to do anything with it, and that's going to lead to resentment between us, and that's just disservice. So I see all of those pieces as like being whole. But what I love about what you're saying is you eventually go where you're home at, you know? And for me,
Mm.
man, to be honest, I'm barefoot on the land. I'm around all these pods of people learning, and I'm painting and I'm building stuff and I'm making stuff with my hands. That's what I love to do. And I'm delivering, I'm teaching. I love inspiring people. And this has been a little bit of a platform for me to do that too. So anyways, that's my kind of wholesome answer to your, to
Perfect.
your question.
I appreciate that. And I think like as someone who is running their own business, their own community, we need to fill all roles, especially in the beginning, until the point where we are so big enough. Like if you look at someone like Alex Hermosi, he doesn't need to do everything himself anymore. He can
Mhm,
hire someone, he can hire a knight, a ninja, and a wizard to do things for him while he is a little bit like the orchestrator
mhm.
at the top. And I think if um, there are two different pathways. And so this is me thinking about
Oh, you got some
a
balloons
video
going.
game.
You are a wizard. You just conjured some balloons.
Yes. Um, so depending on what direction we want to go. I always love giving people the choice. It's like, hey,
Mhm,
you can specialize in any of these three roles and become the best at those. And you will be extremely successful. And you're gonna have a really fun life because you're gonna do these things and you can do these effectively forever. And these will always remain relevant. However, if you have the desire to do something yourself, like there is something calling, there is something that's like, I need to do this, then I think it's important that you learn all three of these.
mhm,
And in my opinion, the best way to learn these is to learn it from someone else.
mhm,
Because if we do this through trial and error, like I did, I created YouTube videos for years. And I was just like, okay, I just have to do it for a long time.
mhm,
It's like, yes, to a degree, but if someone had like told me from the beginning and set me down, it's like, hey, if you're gonna make videos about everything, the algorithm will not know who to show these videos to.
mhm,
And you're effectively wasting your time beyond just like the skill acquisition of setting up the lighting and thinking about how to talk without having these ums and ls and likes and all of that. Like we still get better at that, but we're not necessarily seeing the progress.
mhm,
And having someone who is a few steps ahead of us in the thing that we want to learn is essential. And if we want to do our own thing, I think we have to go through periods where we work for someone else,
mhm,
even though it doesn't feel like, but I want to do my own thing. It's like,
mhm,
yes, um, and in order to do your own thing, you have to go and study underneath a master who is teaching you these things. Because if you try to do everything through trial and error, you're gonna be so far behind someone else who is just accepting the guidance of someone who has already done it.
yeah,
Because when we have to figure out everything on our own, like there are infinite amount of possibilities and there are infinite ways that this is not gonna work, and figuring them all out is gonna take a lifetime. But there are certain proven methods that's like if you do these steps, then you are gonna be successful. And
mhm,
there are multiple of those that work, but it's important that you follow one of them
mhm,
and not follow two of them at the same time. That's
mhm,
like another big thing. It's like if you are learning marketing, learn marketing from one person. And
mhm,
kind of what you said with the school, it's like study this almost religiously.
yeah,
Do this until you get results. Do this until you're like, okay, I understand this now and I can apply this. And if I want, I can change the rules of the game. But we cannot change the rules until we understand the rules.
yeah,
And I think the best way to understand it is to learn from someone who is doing the thing that you actually want to do. And that is what got me to like, oh, I need to work for Andrew Kirby because he is doing what I want to do in like
Hmm.
changing the education system.
Hmm.
He is doing it slightly differently, which is amazing because I got to learn this different approach. And now I get to iterate on the thing, just like how he is iterating the thing that he was learning from Sam Owens. And if we're all doing that, then we all are creating our own ecosystem that is still connected to the larger ecosystem, and we still help each other out. And this sense of collaboration is something that I get so excited about because I don't see any other industry besides like the community game where collaboration is such a winning strategy.
Yeah, it really, I think it's going to be what saves our world and evolves it. I was just having a conversation with David Ia earlier this morning, and he just spoke so highly
I
of
talked
you,
with him
Lucas.
yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, and you know what I feel, what school is attracting is all these creative, collaborative minded people. So I feel like it's done a really good job of gathering a tribe and really kind of for those who are not yet ready that the strong strong-headed marketers who are just wearing a face and not bringing their whole self, it pushes them out until they're ready, and so much of what you said I think is so important for moving forward. And just it's a full circle what you said at the beginning. It's like community is the only real scalable entity that we can be investing in right now because it allows us to synergize our authentic gifts. And so I'm curious, how have you found the best ways? Because one thing I've noticed is a challenge, and maybe it's just because I haven't mastered the skill. So I could come work for you, to learn how to organize. And I know you're working on a system right now, how to actively, effectively make those whether it's through agreement or through partnerships so that it's clear and there's clear steps moving forward. Because I feel like so many, especially entrepreneurs, there are so many rods in the fire, they're trying to do so many things. I mean, it's very easy to have a conversation like, hey, let's do something together, let's do this, and people get excited. But without an effective strategy to moving forward, it sometimes things just fizzle out. We're all human
Mm,
beings, and then we go into our guilt and, oh, I should have reached out to that person. It's been a month, and we all have these kind of experiences where we have the best of intentions. So what do you see is some mechanisms that are and you don't have to share all your secret sauce. I know you're a wizard. So, but like
no,
for
I'm
people
happy to.
listening, like if you really want to
Yeah.
work with somebody, how do you find is the best way of doing that?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of things. So I like to start by understanding people's personalities. I
Mm,
studied like the 16 personality types and then the big five to the point where I I just have a solid understanding of people now, so I don't really need for people to do a personality test to know that you're more on the extroverted side and you're very open to new ideas and you seem to be pretty conscientious. I'm not sure about like your neuroticism levels, but like over time, like I kind of it just becomes natural. But the first piece is understanding and I would say it's the alignment. It's like, are we going in the same direction? And as
mm,
long that is the case, then it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, let's figure out something, how to work together. And there were some people, um, like when you learn traditional sales, and it's like, oh, like you should do a maximum of a two call close. Like there's someone that I had 30 calls with, and then we started working together because they were
mm,
like, we were not ready and we were not aligned and going
mm,
for the same thing until that happened. We knew it's like, bro, like this is amazing. Like we need to like do something, but like I'm doing this and you're doing that, and it doesn't work right now, and that's
mhm,
okay. But if we always are thinking about these kind of threats, and
mhm,
I think this is the second piece, to find alignment is to have a system that reminds us of like who we connected with.
mm,
So this is something like I personally am a big fan of CRMs, so it's a
mm,
customer relationship manager, and there are different versions of that. Um, to get started, you can just use a Google Sheets and just start like, I talked with this person. And then there are much more sophisticated things like Salesforce, where they like track everything that you do. And I think the tracking is the key aspect. the tracking within a system. That's
Mm,
that's the aspect because when we understand what we're doing and what we're working on, and then we are able to connect this to the people, it's very obvious to see whether these things are aligned or not.
mm,
And I want to tie this back to education because this is one of the big missing pieces that I feel like can improve every educational community is the importance of project. So project-based learning is essential to change our
mm,
behavior. Because if you are just creating something to consume, then people are not learning because their behavior hasn't changed. They just consumed something. So I can tell you something about the um I don't know, the immune system of the body, and I read big books about this, but like I didn't change my behavior. I was like, okay, I didn't really learn anything.
mm,
Eventually I may create a game on like turning the immune system into a tower defense and like whatever. This is fun to think about just in case, but it's not going to help me right now. So the key aspect, also to tie this to your question, to find if this is worth working with someone, is to like what specific project can we tie this to?
mm,
And out of that project, we can then break this down into smaller tasks. And unless someone is willing to work with you on a project, um, it's probably not gonna work out. Because if you just say, oh, let's just meet every 2 weeks to catch up, it's like that's fun and all, but it's not gonna help you reach your goals because
mm.
there's no real accountability. You're just chatting. It's like, yeah, maybe sometimes you're chatting about like things that are relevant, but then like you go on a side tangent, you talk about AI or the TV shows that you're watching, and all of that is amazing and fun and perfect for networking. I like to tie this to still projects though. So unless I have active projects with my friends, we don't actively talk that much unless we say, hey, there is this thing happening in summer, let's get together. This is now a project.
Mm.
And it's a shared project that we can pursue. In online business, when I'm like, uh, for example, I'm a big fan of fantasy book series. I love Brandon Sanderson. He's creating at the moment his own Marvel Cinematic Universe with different worlds and magic systems. Like, I'm a wizard. I geek out about these things. So when I meet someone like this, for me to justify talking about it, it's like, okay, how can we turn this into a project? And I know that I'm able to, and I'm actively planning this, to turn this into a Dungeons and Dragons game that is
Cool.
based off that series. So now, instead of just raving about this
Mm,
um these fictional books that we are enjoying. It's like, no, I'm talking with you with the intention of inviting you to a game that we're gonna
mm.
play later, which
Yeah.
is becoming a project. And the benefits of that project is greater relationships, a better understanding. You're gonna connect with other people who are into the same things. We're gonna develop leadership skills, and I can like list out the benefits for each of the projects that I'm working on. And in order to do that, again, having a system to organize the projects. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
what projects do I have with which person? And some of the projects can be sales related. And it's like, hey, I'm really good at sales. I want to help you with your podcast. Like, let's do something. It's like, okay, now you have a shared project
Mhm.
and you can work on this. But it's the same thing with a client, right? Because when we want to help our clients, like, hey, I'll help you get 3 high ticket clients. This is now a project because
Mhm.
we sell this transformation for 3 months. And now we have the commitment, and I'm able to break this commitment down. It's like, okay, we're going to work for 3 months on this. You want to reach this outcome. Therefore, I need you to do this in week one, this in week two,
Mhm.
this in week three. And being able to break this down into systems is something that I absolutely love. This is like where my true wizard comes out. And I can do this with every aspect, whether this be like something personal on let's play some games, whether this is like something business, and it's like, okay, let me coach you through these aspects,
Mhm.
a partnership where, okay, you get this amount of commission for everyone that you invite, and we have an affiliate, or even a content strategy. It's like, hey, okay, let's do these sets of launch posts and prepare them together, and you are gonna help me with the editing. And I think because you mentioned it's like it's very hard to keep all of these things in our heads. That's why we need to have a system that is supporting us. And
Hmm.
that's what I think of having like a spaceship. So traditional people don't need a spaceship because
Hmm.
like, oh, you're just like doing running your errands and like you're doing your 9 to 5 and like you're being told what to do. You don't need a spaceship for that. But if you're running your own business and you want to reach a specific destination, you're not gonna make this with like a tricycle. Like you need a proper spaceship if you want to have this like world-changing impact, because like that is what's required. And that is also the thing that will attract other people to that. Like,
Hmm.
oh shit, this dude has a whole spaceship. And like of course I want to like fly with him. So being able to invite other people into our sphere of projects is the key aspect to really facilitate a transformation, whether that is for fun, for health, for wealth, for relationships, like all of these aspects. I think of like projects, and another way of saying project is a quest. And that's how it ties
Mm.
together into like all of us are playing a game. And some of these quests we play by ourselves, but I found that the most fun I have is if I'm completing a quest with someone else and then just
Mm.
being able to like break this down. It's like, okay, these are the components, this is what we want to do. And this is like also the rewards that we are getting from the quest. So that makes the whole thing like, man, I'm just loving this. This is so fun.
Yeah. Well, I always looked at Quest as like, like it's a question with a charge. Like you have to know, you have to
Ooh.
get to that other side, right? And there's something called affirmative questions. Everyone talks about affirmations, but when you have an affirmative question, you're asking, like, you're almost asking that question in advance of receiving it. Like, what will it be? What did I do to become truly enlightened and be able to have a spaceship? And it's so funny you bring up spaceship bed because you can ask Julia. I always say the only physical thing I really want is a flying saucer because it solves the problems of living, travel, probably replication, like
Oh yeah, everything is on it.
everything is on a spaceship. So I think it's so amazing, man, that you brought that up. And I love this like so much of what you say and are talking about systems is so important, Lucas, and I can see your passion. I love that. I feel like if you don't have a passion for something, it's probably not worth doing. And yet there's so many people I know sitting in front of a computer right now who are just doing something for that, yeah, that security or that perceived certainty that they're going to get to a place where they won't have to do it anymore, which I feel like is a trap. And a lot of we're sold this trap. I think for multiple years in school, you go through 20 plus years of school, and then of course it's going to affect your mindset. But what you say about project-based learning, I've been saying this for years, and I notice this as a problem being a professional educator, especially in the Indigenous wellness space, because a lot of students coming in from like the reserve systems or whatnot from different cultural backgrounds, they come into these very linear systems. It's like you have to jump through all these hoops, and I couldn't do that because I'm a nonlinear thinker. I dropped out of university because I was like, I have to do all these courses that I'm not going to enjoy just to get this piece of paper that is like I don't even know what that means. Like it's just not for me because I was looking to do project-based learning with the professors even from year one because I was going to university not to get some career in the future. I was looking for enlightenment. I didn't have maybe the words for it, but I really felt like I want to make impacts now. And I feel like this is one of the biggest detriments. And you talked earlier about helping the next generation not squander potential. This idea, it's a belief I think that's in the educational institutions that we see, this idea that you have to go through all this preparation before you have any impacts in the world. So you have to graduate all these things, and then you can, apply to have an impact. I think that's such a trap, and it's such a lie to young children. I look at my daughter. She already has the heart of service. She already wants to help. If she sees us sweeping, she goes and gets a broom. She wants to help. She wants to be involved. That's a project, right? Cleaning the house is a project. Baking cookies. She wants to, and she gets upset if I try to take something away for her and not allow her to do it. And sometimes I have to because it might not be safe for her to do it. But she has a heart of service. She has a heart of contribution. She wants to learn. She wants to grow. And I feel like just nurturing that kind of relationship is what community is all about, you know? And so I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I really am looking forward to see what kind of projects evolve, not only just between you and I, but between this larger network. I feel like a dream team is emerging in a lot of ways, and I wholeheartedly believe like my biggest project, man, is is home for everyone. Like imagine a world where there's no homeless people because we a state of heaven where we are living in harmony with one another, where we're all rejoicing in the abundance. Everyone has good food, good clothing, has a beautiful shelter. Even if it's shared palatial living and we're living in these like large, expansive places, we don't all need these boxes. Maybe some people need that, but I see that as a picture of like, what if we're all
Mm,
back to a role where we're stewards, we're in harmony with the lands, we're in harmony with one another. And I think, you know, it might seem as like, you know, that's utopian, that's impossible, that's why not, but it starts within. And this is what I realized in serving communities. Like I worked for like almost a decade in indigenous communities. And what I noticed is a lot of these hierarchical structures, it breeds toxicity, right? Because people identify as these roles and that of superiority and inferiority. And it creates these power imbalances when I think when we're our healthiest, we're all in the same circle, even though some of us have achieved maybe very great things that inspire everyone in the circle, there when we're in a circle, at least you can move in that direction. But when there's a hierarchy,
mm,
there's like this fighting that emerges. And what I've noticed in working in like a really beautiful community center and watching it being, you know, built from the ground up, is that you could have the most beautiful building in the world, but if the people inside are unwell and they're discordant and there's conflict, it's not a community. So I realized
mm.
true community actually is an inner game. Like you have to be community first, and then you can actually. And that's what I want to like. What I'm working on now is creating uh, a program, a launch, because I want to work with individuals one on one, specifically in the spiritual area, who are like who want soul aligned community, working with them to really get an aligned sense of their higher vision, so that the community they build around them is in alignment with that, and the people that they attract into that is in alignment. Because so many of us, you know, who are inspired, we try to learn the business hat, and we're like, okay, well, I want everyone in here and I want to sell as many people as I can, and then but you're attracting maybe people who are takers, or you're attracting people who are
Mm.
not good for the overall, you know, feeling of the community. And so I feel like it's so important, that alignment piece. But anyways, just back to you, because I think what you said about project-based learning, like even if we look at each of our individual communities as a project, all these people are coming in to participate in this project, and now we're building bridges between one another, and like what's possible when we really, you know, work together is yet to be seen.
Yeah, I think you touched on an important point there, because the key aspect is that we truly want to do that. Like we are so aligned that we kind of want to do this forever. And these are the things that I'm optimizing for. On this really helps in making the right long-term decisions instead of
Mm,
trying to do a short-term cash grab, for example. Because if we are thinking of ourselves as like, no, this is not a game that I'm just playing for the next like 2, 3, 10 years, but this is a game that I want to play until I die. And if we find something like this, then I feel like we unlocked a whole new play style, because we are no longer trying to just get something,
mhm.
but it all becomes about optimizing the journey. Because when we are aiming to play as long as possible, then everything that we are dreading to do is hurting that. So every time we have a call with someone that we kind of don't want to have a call with, but it's making money, it's actually hurting us more
Mm.
than that making money is helping us, because we are now optimizing for the long term and thinking about like, how can I make sure that every aspect, like everything that I do throughout the day, is fun. And that's where like the gamification comes in. And it's like, okay, I can make things like I hate grocery shopping, but if I listen to an audiobook, I don't give a shit what like
Yeah.
what kind of like thing I'm doing on the side. Or like I maybe have a hard time reaching out to people. It's like, okay, let me put on some music. It's like now all of a sudden this is way better.
Mhm.
Or if I maybe have a hard time like concentrating because I'm tired. It's like, okay, so now I need to optimize getting on bed on time so that I can enjoy the actual activity that I'm doing for as long as possible, because that's how we win, by staying in the game instead of trying to just win the game, because we never truly win. We win by playing.
I love that. You remind me of a book I had years ago. I don't even know if I still have it in my collection, but it was called Infinite Games and Finite Games.
Yes.
And there
Good book.
is, oh, look, someone speaking of fun, someone wanted to come say hi here. Hey,
Hey,
Luciana. You want to say hi? This is Lucas. Hi, Luke. He's like Luke
hey.
Skywalker. See, he's got the Star Wars medallion and everything. You probably don't know who that is yet, right? Of course.
Ooh, yeah, that's a bit early. My sister
Yeah, of
is called
course.
Leia
She hasn't.
as a
Oh,
side.
really? Your
Yeah,
sister is Leia? No
my
way.
sister is Leia.
Oh,
So
that's so funny,
um,
man.
that's interesting. I kind of do have a call right now.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, right.
so
I should have
I
asked you at the beginning,
appreciate
man.
you
I appreciate you too.
having this conversation. I'm excited to see it, and yeah, I'm happy to like kind of catch up and do all of these things asynchronously. Any last thing
Well,
to wrap?
I just like to ask our guests, if you had a megaphone and you could talk to the whole world at once, Lucas, what would you say if everyone could hear you?
Stop playing on autopilot and make the decisions and choices that enable you to play the game that you actually want to play.
That's beautiful, man. I really appreciate you. Well, I know you got to hop off. I'm going to bring up a video from Luciana. Just say, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, brother. Blessings to all the people you touch and to your continuing game. That is an awesome place to be. So if you want to join Luke's community on School, it's called The Game. We'll put a link in our show notes as well. And look forward to seeing you on the flip side, brother.
Yeah, let's keep building these bridges.
So
That's how we win together.
that's exactly how we want to totally agree, man. Okay, blessings. Have a wonderful day.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching.
Button.
You say ciao ciao.
Touchdown. Bye.
I love you so much.